Travis Hunter's ADP is skyrocketing. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Magdziuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Kate, let's talk about some ADP. We've got some big news coming from Dynasty League football, and it's very interesting to me. We've got a couple guys that are rising way up the draft boards, including our guy, Travis Hunter, who in our last batch of ADP for March was being drafted outside of round 1, 14th overall, wide receiver 5, but he's starting to climb. Now he is up to wide receiver 2 behind only Tetero McMillan in 9th overall in Superflex drafts. What do you make of that?
I think it sounds kind of spot on here because this is what we've been preaching, Marcus, right? Like, as a pure wide receiver, Travis Hunter is wide receiver 1 in this draft class. And there's no real question mark about the physical traits. The question mark this entire time, and I think what had baked into that relatively low average draft position in these rookie mocks is that we don't know, is he going to play cornerback? But the timing of this average draft position change is very interesting to me because we just got a report here that says Travis Hunter told Garrett Padell of CBS Sports that if an NFL team wanted him to commit to playing a single position, he would never play football again. What are your thoughts? And does that, because when you initially see that ADP change, you think, okay, that's on par with what we kind of thought should be his average draft position. But if he is truly going to play both positions in the NFL, how do we feel about that?
I don't love it because I wish he would be open to playing just wide receiver in the NFL because I think he's a phenomenal wide receiver prospect and focus all your time and attention and energy at receiver because I think if he did that, he could easily be one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL. But if he's going to be playing both, I do wonder what the ceiling is here. And that makes me a little bit nervous, but not nervous enough, Kate, that I would stay away from him with my 9th overall pick. In fact, I would still take him probably inside the top 5 or 6 selections just because I think he's such a unique talent. I did want to talk a little bit about where we think he's going to play, and that's with the Cleveland Browns. It's if you look at FanDuel, they have some draft props. Travis Hunter is the overwhelming favorite to be the number 2 pick by the Cleveland Browns. And if you go back to the NFL Combine, Andrew Berry, their GM, said that they view him as a wide receiver first. So I would have to assume the Browns are going to let him be primarily a receiver and then maybe sprinkle him in on defense. They already have 3 really good corners with Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and Martin Emerson. They don't really need him to play on that side of the ball. They need him to be a receiver. So I understand why the ADP is rising, and I want to keep buying.
Yeah, I think definitely for me, the lesson here is keep buying. And it does kind of depend on landing spot. We've mentioned several landing spots where you could theoretically see him playing on either side of the ball, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, for example. Yeah, I could picture him being a bigger need at cornerback with the presence of Brian Thomas Jr. there. But then you look at a team like the Browns or the Patriots, where you kind of get a feel that, yeah, they need his services much more on the offensive side of the ball. So even if he is going to technically play both positions in the NFL, that doesn't mean that he's not going to play one more than the other. And that's the thing.
Let me ask you this from a dynasty perspective. And again, this is going to change a lot over the course of Travis Hunter's career because it's the Cleveland Browns. Assuming he is the pick at number 2, who do you want to be the quarterback there? Do you want it to be Kenny Pickett? Do you want it to be Joe Flacco? Do you want it to be somebody else? Somebody in the draft? What are you hoping for here to boost Travis Hunter's dynasty stock the most?
Is it weird if I say Joe Flacco?
No, because that's probably in the short term. I think that's my answer because I think Flacco, he's got the arm strength to throw the ball through the wind, to cut it through the wind, target him down the field, and he's just not going to run at all, which just gives us more passing attempts. It's very similar to what Davis has done for the Browns and for some of these other teams over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think honestly we've already seen Joe Flacco in this Kevin Stefanski offense. Like we already kind of know what to expect. And guess what? As soon as we saw Joe Flacco in that offense, we saw things open up a lot for the receiving options. I do think Kenny Pickett would be I mean it would be I think a tough pill to swallow
But
when
I
you
think,
consider
but we know it's a short term thing, and just with like Flacco, it's a
you
short.
do, but you also don't know like what is the long you have no idea what the long term is, right? Like you have no clue. Kenny Pickett, like, I mean, first 2 seasons in the league, Marcus combined for 13 passing
I
touchdowns
know.
over 24 starts. 13 passing touchdowns.
I know. Listen, I was the one that was telling everybody forever that Kenny Pickett stinks, but we have Steeler fans out there that were trying to
Oh, okay.
not you. You're one of the good ones, but I did think that was interesting. I thought one of the more intriguing parts is that he is now Travis Hunter has jumped some of the other receivers. Just in our March ADP, Matthew Golden was wide receiver 4, Luther Burden wide receiver 3, Emeka Egbuka wide receiver 2. He's jumped all of them.
And for good reason. He's
Yep.
the better wide receiver.
He's the better wide receiver. And I think in the case of like Egbuka and Burden, both of those players, their draft stock has fallen quite a bit. Where
Mhm.
I think Burden was even a month ago looked at somebody who was going to be a lock top 20 pick. I don't think that's the case now. And for Matthew Golden, this is what we talked about on yesterday's show. Like, we think Matthew Golden has a really good chance to be the first receiver drafted and potentially go to the Cowboys at pick number 12. But that is a horrible landing spot for his dynasty value. And if that is the case, I wouldn't want him in the first round of my super flex drafts. So his actual NFL draft stock is rising, but it's falling in the eyes of dynasty managers.
Yeah, I think all of that makes sense. But I mean, Travis Hunter, man, I just think when you're looking at the total upside and that perspective of things, like that's kind of all that matters to me right now as a dynasty manager, because I know if he plays the majority of snaps at wide receiver, that's going to mean a lot for my dynasty value here.
All right, Kate, let's take a look at some of the other risers and fallers in this latest batch of Superflex rookie ADP. Let's get to Tyler Warren next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. But that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place, so you can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. I started using Monarch Money probably 3-4 months ago, and I realized how much money I was spending on stupid stuff, trivial stuff. Now I am budgeting smarter and I am saving more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Okay, let's talk about Tyler Warren, the do-everything tight end for the Penn State Nittany Lions. In our March ADP, he was going at the back end of round 1, 11th overall. He was tight end 1. Starting to see him creep up a little bit. Now he is 8th overall. In terms of overall dynasty rankings, he's already a top 5 dynasty tight end. What do you make of his move up?
I think, again, it feels like the market's just kind of correcting to actual draft price. Because, Marcus, we've talked a lot about maybe some of the deficiencies in this wide receiver class. There's no, like, outside of Travis Hunter, who comes with the stipulation that he's also a cornerback, there's no absolute blue chip prospects in this class, right? Then you look at the running backs, it's a deep class. There's a lot of talent there at the top. You have Ashton Genty, you have all these different players, but like the receiver position where we can, gain some real long-term value, it just isn't there. So we're going to see a lot of, the top half of, maybe the first round loaded with the running backs. If you're in a super flex, you'll see some quarterbacks sprinkled in there. But the receivers, I think, are going to fall. And I do think that when you're just looking at like blue chip prospects, that's Tyler Warren. And who do I have the most faith out of, between Tyler Warren and all of these wide receivers not named Travis Hunter to have an outstanding NFL career? It's definitely Tyler Warren. So it makes sense.
Yes. So let me talk through some of my struggles that I have, because I agree with everything you said. Like, I think long term, Tyler Warren is going to be a superstar for us fantasy players. Like, I have no doubts. But I watched every one of his targets and touches on Sunday night. It was a long video. Trust me, it's available on YouTube. And one of the conclusions that I had coming away from it, it's that he's an awesome player. So when I say this, just know that I think he's an awesome player.
I feel like there's a butt coming.
There is. A lot of his touches and targets were manufactured, where it was like, hey, we're going to design the play to get Tyler Warren the football. And I would assume, Kate, if you're drafting a tight end inside the top 10, you would do that. I think the Raiders did a really good job of doing that last year. But I do wonder if that might not be the case right away. And we don't see so many, hey, here's a handout off, or here's a touch behind the line of scrimmage. Here's a screen pass. We're going to move everybody in motion so you get a free release off this line of scrimmage. It's why I wonder if Colston Loveland, who's just a much better route runner and gets open, I wonder if Loveland is more likely to have success right away than Tyler Warren.
I think that's fair. My only question mark there is that because of Loveland's season-ending shoulder injury,
That's the thing.
The question marks about him missing portions of the offseason programs as a rookie, I do think that's just a really hard thing to overcome. Like, he is obviously the natural instincts as a route runner, ability to separate that is absolutely unheard of for his size. So like the talent there is not a question, but it's just the acclimation period to the NFL, which we know can be tricky in general. We know it can be especially tricky for the tight end position specifically, even if he is going to be pretty much used as a pure big bodied receiver. Like, I do wonder if maybe there's just a chance that despite the fact that both of these tight ends, I think like Tyler Warren, again, lock for top 5 dynasty tight end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Colston Loveland, I think like the lowest you could probably rank him is tight end 7. And that's
Very
probably like as low as you can go. Like, despite that, I do wonder if maybe there is going to be an acclimation period for both of these tight ends that maybe could open up a buy low window here in the year to come.
Maybe. But I will say, like, if you play in dynasty leagues, and obviously you do because you're listening to this podcast, you know how hard it is to trade for a top 5 tight end. Even if, the 4th, 5th tight end, it's just really hard to acquire those guys. So I'm saying this I want to say, like, I don't think Tyler Warren is going to have the rookie season Brock Bowers has or had, obviously, right? So don't be surprised if it's more of like a typical rookie tight end season, 500, 600, 700 yards. I think it's going to take time for NFL teams to figure out the best way to use Tyler Warren. Having said all that, Kate, he's absolutely somebody that I want to draft inside the top 10 in my rookie drafts. He's somebody that I would take in the top 8 because you can't trade for those guys. Like, go out in your leagues right now and put in an offer for Brock Bowers just to see how difficult it is to trade for somebody like that. Go see how hard it is to go get Trey McBride. You can't do it. That's why I would take these guys early.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Once you get one of these, like, pretty stable tight ends, or once you get these blue chip prospect tight ends, you hold on to them for dear life and you don't let go unless maybe you have a plethora of options, right? Like there's no,
But there are no plethora of options,
but
right? Like
I'm talking like that rare dynasty team that like, okay, maybe you stash Trey McBride after a relatively disappointing rookie season, and then you nabbed Brock Bowers, and now you just have two
yeah.
top 3 tight ends. Like,
Congratulations to you. You're winning your league every single season because you have
mhm,
two of the most valuable players in all of Dynasty. It's what I just wanted to preface this. I could see a situation where these tight ends disappoint a little bit as rookies, but their values just don't go down because it's so hard to find these players. So again, I think we should mention Colston Loveland in the March ADP, 15th overall tight end 2. In the latest batch of ADP, 15th overall tight end too. So it's basically the exact same.
for sure.
Yeah. I want to mention a couple other players just really quickly. Shedeur Sanders, he was QB2, 7th overall in March ADP. As of this posting, QB2, 7th overall. However, it feels like he's falling in NFL draft or mock draft circles. We had some reports today. I think one was from Peter Schrager where he said the Giants like him, but probably more like in a trade back up from the first round. I think Albert Breer from SI said there's a chance that he doesn't go in round 1. Will you drop Shedeur in your rankings if he falls to the 20s or heaven forbid the 30s?
That's really hard because I've kind of from the get-go, had an opinion that Shedeur Sanders could be a really good NFL quarterback, but that he wasn't the cleanest prospect, which is why there are talks of him falling. There are certain teams that, per like Todd McShay's reports, were just kind of put off by the attitude. And ironically, that's part of probably what makes him kind of one of these quarterbacks you could picture hanging around in the league for a long time, because that attitude, that confidence is very important. But clearly there's some line that he's towing that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an NFL GM, but the stuff, like let's just evaluate the pure football of it all. He takes too many sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, the accuracy is absolutely there, but not necessarily the biggest athletic threat. He's not going to, add that element to your game. He's that pure pocket passer. Like he's just not a perfect prospect to evaluate, and the fact that he is not perfect and the fact that he also doesn't have that rushing upside has already kind of lowered my perspective ceiling for a guy like him. I think the fantasy component is something that needs to be considered here because of the way that we score the quarterback position in terms of rushing. He doesn't
I don't
breathe.
think, yeah, I wouldn't probably draft him where he's being selected anyways, QB or 7th overall. I would much prefer Travis Hunter, Tyler Warren. I would just take those guys ahead of him. But I do wonder if the draft capital could have a big impact on his dynasty value, because we know if you're a top 5 pick, you're going to get chance after chance after chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I think our good example is somebody like Sam Darnold, right? Sam Darnold was a bust for the Jets, and he just kept getting opportunities and eventually it worked out. He went to the Vikings and now he's with the Seahawks, right? But if you're the 25th pick in the draft, or you're a 34th overall, top of the second round, that's still good draft capital. It's not the same as a top 5 pick. And a lot of those guys, and I think look at like Will Levis. Okay. Will Levis was the 34th overall in the 2023 draft, already a backup in the NFL. It just
Yep.
matters a lot when it comes to your dynasty value. I like Shedeur more than Will Levis, but it will have me a little spooked if he falls that far.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like how many chances do you get in the league, because they're precious. So that I think will be a big factor for Sanders in particular. And I mean, only time will tell, but we'll have our answer here very,
Yep.
very shortly.
All right, let's talk about a running back who has dramatically fallen down the startup dynasty ADP. Let's talk about Ollie Gordon next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love FanDuel. I love the NBA playoffs. I cannot wait to bet on some of the play-in games on Tuesday night. It's going to be so much fun. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team, the Lakers, who are the 3rd seed, congratulations, or diving into player props. They make it so enjoyable. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine your live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day, and find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Kate, I want to talk about Ollie Gordon because it wasn't that long ago Ollie Gordon was being mocked in the first round of NFL drafts. And then obviously he was a top pick in Superflex drafts. In March, his ranking was RB9, 22nd overall. Now we're down to way down. He's RB13, 31st overall, falling about 10 spots. What do we make of Ollie Gordon's fall?
I think it's probably to do with the fact that, Marcus, there's a lot of running back talent here in this class. And I do think that after this, let's say the top 5 running backs, I generally think that you can rank most of these guys. You could find a way to talk yourself into ranking them in any given order. The tiers, I think, are much closer for RB, let's say 6 through 12 at this point, than you're going to find in most classes. And the fact that, let's say, I think Ollie Gordon right now, RB 14 in Dane Brugler's positional rankings right now, but he still has a 4th round projection, right? That tells you just how many running backs we're going to probably see come off the board fairly early. But I think a lot of this is going to depend on team needs and very individual team evaluations, because there is so much talent here that you can kind of evaluate and you're going to need to sort of pick apart some of your tiebreakers here when it comes to deciding who you're ranking over one another.
Ollie Gordon has really fallen down the consensus board right now. And again, it's continuing to drop. 127th overall. However, I composite these expert consensus boards, and he's a lot further than that. He's nearly in the 200s. I'm seriously wondering if there's a chance that Ollie Gordon could fall to the 5th, 6th, 7th round, maybe even undrafted. And in a running back class that could have 25 players drafted, if he's not one of the top 15, top 20, I just wonder if we just kind of throw him out and don't worry about him at all. Right now he's being drafted at the bottom of the 3rd round. And I just like so many other players in that range better. Kate, let me name some of the players that are currently going after him. Elijah Arroyo, the tight end from Miami, who I really like. Mason Taylor, who could be a 1st-round tight end from LSU. Brashad Smith, who I love from SMU. You can continue to get quarterbacks. Tyler Shuck, Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, Jaden Blue, who ran a 4.30 at Texas's pro day. I think I'm out on Ollie Gordon.
And I think that's fair. Now, tell me, give us some insight into the draft sort of evaluation component of it. Because how do you go from being the 2023 Doak Walker Award winner to falling out of the draft entirely?
Yeah, so we had some mock drafts back in October. So this was not that long ago. Being mocked to the Chiefs at 32, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bengals in the 1st round. One of the problems is he dealt with a lower body injury, and it really zapped his speed. He also, I think, gained too much weight at the NFL Combine when he was running in the 4.6s. that just style of running back doesn't work particularly well in the league. And we do have them, but they're really easy to find and replace. Like, you do not need to spend a high pick on a 225-pound running back that runs in the 4.6s. Like, there are plenty of those guys out there. You see somebody who doesn't have the quickness to avoid tackles, but doesn't have the long speed to get outside either. He was incredible in 2023, and maybe you're hoping in the NFL he can cut some weight, he can get healthy and get back to the player that we saw that season. But in a class that's this loaded, I don't know if you have to take that chance.
Yeah, I think maybe if like we were looking at Ollie Gordon, even this prospect, Ollie Gordon, in his current state after the current season that he had, where he did have some of that regression. I think like if we plucked him and put him into last year's class, it might not shift the landscape quite as drastically because it just wasn't as good a class, right? There wasn't that same level of athleticism. Like the athletic talent of this running back group is pretty fantastic. And then you piece in the fact that that's just not, what he does. It gets a lot harder to make those justifications when there are so many running backs that the tiebreakers are probably going to go their way.
And one of the things that
out.
and one of the things I've noticed over the last 5 or 6 years, kind of following this, is the guys that fall in the Dynasty Superflex or just Dynasty rookie ADP as we get closer to the draft, very few of them end up turning out, right? Like the guys that are disappointing and falling down draft boards, it's very rare that they end up becoming steals. They're usually falling for a reason. And I got to assume that's the case for Ollie Gordon. What's that phrase? You don't want to try to catch a falling knife. I wonder if that applies to Ollie Gordon here.
Yikes.
Yeah. All right. That is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Every day is on tomorrow's show. It's a Wednesday show. So, of course, Matt Williamson will be here. We'll continue to get you ready for the NFL draft. We'll talk some more about some Superflex ADP. So make sure you tune in for that. Make sure you're downloading the Locked On Dynasty Football podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube and all platforms. Follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.